I'm shaking a little bit right now, and I've been up here and I've been afraid up here before, but that's not what it is this morning. That's not what it is. I'm shaking because there's something happening in this room. I'm shaking because there's something happening inside of me. Because this is a magical place. It really is. And if Martin and Zimmerman had met under this roof and in these walls, it would have been a very, very different result. I want you all to take a look around, really, because the racism that we're talking about doesn't exist in this room. We've cured that illness here. We're in a place where none of those things that burden people outside of these walls burden us. And this song that I chose is very fitting for this situation, but when I chose it, it was a victory song. Because a few weeks ago, California made a decision that eradicated a certain type of discrimination in this state. California said, that doesn't belong here. You don't have a home here. But this is CSA, and none of those things have a home right here. So this is a song about victory. This is a song about celebration. Because the hate is already defeated. And here we already know that. We already believe it. This is called I'm Gonna Have My Way. My God said, in the midst of your storm, said I'm gonna have my way. She said I am God, and with me be there all others, oh, all others. And God said no weapons, no weapon formed against me shall ever prosper. No, God said, no weapon, no weapon formed against me shall ever prosper. My God said, in the midst of the storm that I'm gonna have my way. My God said, in the midst of the storm that I'm gonna have my way.
So let's put your hand over your eyes and just open your eyes. And I open my eyes to see the spiritual truth today. In your ears, I open my ears to hear the spiritual truth today. Now, if you just put your hand over your heart and extend out your arms, I open my heart to receive the spiritual truth today. The spiritual truth that I'm working with today is that you are an extraordinary person. You are an extraordinary person. Now, unfortunately, just from the very point of womb, from the time we come out, we are subject to our cultural conditioning that sort of drives us to live in ordinariness. It's sort of our cultural conditioning drives us to live within the bounds of what life has handed us. See, we don't want to do that. We're much more than that. We are much more extraordinary than living at just what life hands us. I'm starting a series with a fabulous book. Many of you are familiar with Wayne Dyer from both of his writings and his work on public television. And his newest book is called Wishes Fulfilled, Mastering the Art of Manifestation. And in this book, he starts right off talking about ordinary. Ordinary is, well, so ordinary. It means that you do all of the things your culture and your family have programmed you to do. It implies that you fit in, study hard, follow the rules, take care of your obligations, fill out your forms, pay your taxes, get a job, do what every law-abiding citizen does. And then you retire, you play with your grandchildren, and ultimately you die. I want to emphasize there is absolutely nothing wrong with this scenario. It is perfectly fine. But if you were completely acceptable to you, you would not be reading this book. Extraordinary encompasses most of the ordinary, since we all have lives in the physical world. There will be forms to fill out, rules that demand our obedience, bills to pay, and family obligations to attend to. But extraordinary consciousness is associated with your soul, that invincible, boundaryless energy that looks out from behind your eyeballs and has very different interests than your ordinary self does. See, the ideal of our soul is that it yearns for freedom. The idealized version of our soul is that we yearns for freedom. It has no interest in winning. It has no interest in ownership. It has no interest in comparison. It has an interest. It doesn't even have any interest in happiness, really. It has an interest. Our soul has an interest in reaching out in freedom to take from the divine table that which is being given to us, to accept what our wishes being fulfilled. Many of you are familiar with the quote from Confucius that says, you can give a man a fish and he will eat for a day. You can teach a man to fish and he will eat for a lifetime. See, CSA could give you money, but we prefer to give you the 40-day abundance program so that you can manifest money when you want it and how much you want it in the only way money can be manifest, through consciousness. See, Anita could pay you a compliment and it will bolster your self-esteem, but what she wants to do is to give you a self-esteem fishing pole and teach you how to use it. So that when somebody doesn't give you a compliment, or somebody rolls their eyes at something you said or something you're wearing, look, you don't even think about it because you're already filled with self-esteem. Self-esteem. We want compliments to be icing on the cake, and the self-esteem to be the normal way in which you operate in the day. But to become a fisher person, to become a fisher person of anything, we have to overcome the resistance, any resistance, even a small amount of resistance, that we have a higher power within us, and that higher power has the power to bring into manifestation anything you want. Now, here's the thing. We not only have to believe it and say it and learn about it, we have to demonstrate it. Because that's how you know, is when you demonstrate that you have a higher power. And in order to do that, and that you believe the higher power is big enough to be able to give you what you need to get what you want. And when we demonstrate that, we demonstrate that we are not attached to any limitation. See, that's the demonstration. When Rosanna came and said, we're going to have a golf tournament, and we want to get sponsors, and, it's going to be a fabulous thing, and corporations are going to sponsor us, and my still small voice's ugly twin started up. You all have an ugly twin with your still small voice. And it's the one that just chatters, and they're loud, and they're just moving all the time. And so the ugly twin said, what corporation is going to give a church money? Corporations don't partner with churches, even if you are giving money to Weave to work with the people who are in domestic violence. Even with that, they're not going to give any money to churches. And then I realized, started reading this book, and I thought, you know what? I'm attached. I've got my mind attached to a limiting thought. Well, why am I so? And so I thought, of course they're going to partner with us. Corporations are going to partner. Individuals are going to partner. Small businesses are going to want to partner with us. We're going to have more sponsors than we can even have holes to play golf. Of course that's true. Why am I so sure? Because like the song says, I am God. You are God. That's why I'm so sure. See, Dyer says, not only do we have to embrace that we have a higher power within, but then we've got to get a little more sophisticated and move it into the notion that we are the higher power. Yes. We have to move it from the fact that we have a higher power that is within us and fully embrace that we are a higher power. Because the technology of manifestation requires that we're able to do that. Now, here's the thing. It's hard for me. I grew up Catholic. It is hard for me to say, I am God. That is a really tricky thing to say. Even though, just this week, I realized that this week I crossed that line from I am a religious scientist as many years as I was a Catholic. I realized that this week. I'm a religious scientist as many years as I am a Catholic, and it's still uncomfortable for me. And Dyer says this, when we start to think saying I am God is blasphemy, what happens is we've reverted back to a God of ego, a God that is controlling. And of course not. I can hear I can hear my Catholic upbringing saying it's blasphemy. I can hear my recovery upbringing saying wisely to me when I first started recovering, look, Georgia, there is a God and you're not it. See? And I needed that wisdom at that time because in my mind, I still had God as a person who controlled things. And so when most of us in this room have no problem saying, I am love. I am compassion. We stand, we say that, we're happy with it. We even, if those of us who've been in metaphysics for a while, can even say, I am a manifester. We're even okay saying that. But we're not okay saying, I am God. And that's the point at which we have to really begin our work. And early Christianity had no problem with this. No problem at all. Didn't Jesus say, when he was looking at Scripture, do you not know your gods? Don't you get that? Don't you really understand that? Paul, in a letter to the Philippians, says this, let this mind be in you, which is also in Christ Jesus, who, being in the form of God. See, he knew he was in the form of God. Jesus knew it. He didn't have to come to church and learn it. He just knew it. And he acted from that place. But he says this, Jesus did not consider it robbery to be equal with God. Jesus did not consider it robbery to be equal with God. Did you ever wonder where that phrase numbskull comes from? It comes from having a numb mind that you can't get new things into it. We're numbskulls in this area. We have to really get down and get to the notion that we are the presence of God. Hindus say this. They say, don't think you're a spark of God. You're not a spark of God, they say in Scripture. But you are all of God. You are all of God. You are identical. The Scripture says, do not think you are a spark of God. You are identical to God. Many of us teach in metaphysics and foundations, we say, consider an ocean. And if you took a cup and you dipped it in the ocean, what is in the cup? It is just ocean water. We are not all of the ocean, but we are no different from the ocean. It is exactly the same. See? And when we get that, we get that. We have to, Dyer talks about the I am that I am. He says that's what we have to get to. I am consciousness. I am that I am. And I'm going to work with this today because it is not so that you will be faithfully scholarly. I never care about that. I don't care. I care about understanding the I am consciousness because without it, we cannot manifest. Look, I've been teaching manifestation techniques for a good long time, and they're all good techniques. But what I didn't have anchored was this notion that I had to start with I am consciousness. It's the ignition. I can have the greatest car in the world, but if I don't have the ignition for the greatest car in the world, I'm not going to go anywhere. And that's what we have to begin to understand is the I am. Your wishes fulfilled depends on you understanding at a deep level this I am consciousness. Now, many of you are familiar where it came from was Moses met with God at a burning bush, and God asked Moses to go and do something which, by the way, was much more challenging than getting golf sponsors. Just going to say, okay? All right? And so he went, and he said, okay, I'll go and do this thing, but who will I tell said that I am that I am. Tell them I am that I am. See, and Jesus, having read the Torah, being a rabbi, studied the Torah, he knew this. And so let me just read you a few of the phrases that Jesus uses when he's trying to help people understand the juice is in the I am. The juice is in the I am. So he says this, I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved. Now, he uses capital Me. He's not talking about Jesus the man. He's talking about God. I am the door. I am the door. Anybody entering through spiritual principles will be saved. I am the good shepherd. I am the bread of life. I am the light of the world. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the true vine. I am the vine. I am the Alpha and the Omega. He had no problem with this understanding that I am. And that's where we have to get, because the same mind that was in Jesus is in your mind right now too. We have to warm up to this idea that I am. So say this with me, I am God. I am God. Say it one more time, I am God. See, when we can begin to understand that, we can begin to make our wishes known. See, Jesus wasn't afraid to claim the I am, and look at all of them, what we call them miracles. He might have called them wishes. They're wishes in this book. Jesus knew that the creative source was located there, and he was also wise enough and holy enough to know that it wasn't his human self, that it was the Spirit that he is that brought this about. So we have to notice. We have to begin to notice. We notice how Jesus used it. I am. He didn't say I am a screw-up. He didn't say I'm too sensitive. He didn't say I'll never get this. He always followed it with positive things. We need to be paying more attention to how we're doing it. He didn't even say, I am the crucifixion. He said, I am the resurrection. Always following it with positive, life-affirming things. So I'm working with this, and I'm trying to watch my language with this, and I'm reading the book. Now, here's what I came to that almost made me drop my putter. This is a very powerful, powerful part. You cannot get to I am consciousness through your intellect. That's what Dyer says. You cannot get to I am consciousness through your intellect. It's an awesome clue to us. Now, your intellect can help you get toward there, but it cannot bring it home. You must feel it. The I am consciousness is recognized in feelings, and they're recognized in feelings of love. And not just romantic love, but community love and neighborly love and familial love and all kinds of love, different kinds of love. That's how we know when we are in a manifestation experience, is when we feel love. I have a great story for this. Some of you may have heard it before. It's years ago, 10 years ago, when I was at a pool, at a public pool. It was a 4th of July weekend, and it was much like the one we just had, hotter than anything. And so I was alone, and I hadn't met Donna yet, and I was alone, and I went to a public pool, and it was crowded, but I just love the water, so I wanted to be in the pool. So there was enough room for my little chair, my book under my chair, right by, not far from the diving board near the deep end. I sat down and started to take in my surroundings, and I saw a little boy who was obviously developmentally disabled. He was probably about 9 or 10, and I saw him with his little toes curled around the deep end, the edge of the pool, and his little hands like this, and his mother, who had her feet dangling in the water, was encouraging him. Now, if you've been a parent, you know that there have been times in your life when you encouraged your child because you wanted him to do something. Not because the child wanted to do it or because the child needed to do it, but something inside of you said, this child needs to do this now, and it's time, and he's this age, and he's going to do it now. Okay? And that's the energy the mother had. So he's sitting there, and she's trying to be gentle, and she's saying, Timmy was his name, and she'd say, Timmy, just jump in. It's all right. You're going to come back up, and, oh, the water feels so cool, Timmy, and it's good. And Timmy wasn't budging. Timmy was right like this. He's just like, oh. And he was shaking. And all of a sudden, she brought out the big guns. And she said, Timmy, you don't want Daddy to know what a baby you are, do you? And as soon as she said it, my heart went out to her, because I knew how much she regretted having it come out of her mouth. And there are parents in this room. I'm one of them. We've just gone too far in encouraging our children sometimes, and it's been hurtful. And it was hurtful, but she felt so bad about it. Well, I'm trying to pray right then about how this woman might forgive herself. And because I knew Timmy wasn't going in the water. He was just there. And so I saw these 3 cool dudes, about 8 years old, starting to approach. And it made me nervous. And I knew they were cool because they had cool dude trunks. And they had a cool dude haircuts. And they had cool dude swaggers. Okay, so I knew they were cool dudes. And I saw him come up, and I was afraid they were going to make fun of him, because, you know, kids can be kind of mean to each other. And all of a sudden, they were angels. They said things like, they stood right next to him, and they said, like, come on, Timmy, you can do it, you can do it. Come on, man, you can do it. Come on, Tim, you can do it. And they would jump in, they'd say, here's how to do it, Tim. Here's how to do it. And they'd come back up, and they'd get back up, and they'd say, now you do it. Look, it's going to be great. We're going to do it. And Tim, none of it. He was like this, right? And so finally, one of the cool dudes took his hand. And, you know, that had to be hard for a cool dude to do. And he took his hand, and he said, come on, Tim, we're going to jump in together. And they did. And I would like to say that I saw the face of God in Timmy when he broke that water, because it was a beautiful sight. But really, it was those three cool dudes. It was the three cool dudes. That was a manifestation experience. And they left. They had done their work. They got back on the diving board, and they were done, you know. But for a moment, I had manifested that experience. And by that, I mean that had I not been able to see it, had I not been able to, everybody else in that whole pool could have seen that too. But I'm not sure they were able to manifest the experience from that. It's very powerful that we pay attention to moments in which we're touched, whether it's at the movies, whether it's some kind of kind thing that you see go on, no matter what it is, we have to be really touched. And when we are in manifestation mode. See, manifestation happens through your consciousness. And whether it's a new car or an experience is the same. But it has to come from the I am. I had to recognize I created that experience. And you create every experience in your life. Well, next week we're going to, I spent a whole week on just this whole notion of the I am consciousness. Because like I say, without it, everything else, you're going to know about it, but you won't know it. There's a big difference between knowing about something and knowing something. So it's really important that you pay attention. I'm going to give you some homework here in a minute. Because in order for us to turn the key into the manifestation, to have our wishes fulfilled, we've got to be able to get this. This week, I want you to practice a couple of things. Find things you adore and focus on them. And be purposeful about it. You can do it. Find things you adore. Look, if I look at a tree, I might have a manifestation experience because I'm in the I am. I am what's causing me to see that tree. Another example is Donna loves dogs. And so when she sees a dog, she has a manifestation experience. It touches her. And her voice even changes. She'll say, oh, look at that little dog. Isn't that cute? She manifests that because I'm standing right next to her. I've been there as long as the dog has been there too. I don't even see the dog. See? Manifestation comes from what we love and knowing about it. The other thing we need to do is watch your language. Watch your language. Dyer says this: when you follow the I am with anything that is negative, you've just throttled God. Just throttled God. And we don't want to be a group of God throttlers. So you want to come back next week. You want to come back until I finish this series, because today was about the ignition. It's about the I am consciousness. I am God. Get over yourself. You are God. Okay? And next week, we're going to embark on the 5 foundations of manifestation. So we had to get the ignition going, and now we're going to look at the 5 foundations. You don't want to miss even 1 week of this series, because I think it's going to give you some skills that is going to really change your life. So let's take this message into prayer, knowing that we are in the heart and the mind and the very love of God. The I am. Knowing that I am identical with God, that I am a creator, I am a manifester. I simply turn my attention to that which I am willing to accept in my life, which is a place for homeless people, which is an end to racism, homophobia, all of the other isms. I'm willing to accept oneness consciousness in a deep level. I'm willing to let go of the notion of other, because the presence of God is running me now. I give thanks for that. I release this word into the law, and together we say, and so it is.